When we last left our heroes, they had just entered into the Xanathar's estate. They're trying to do a heist situation where they can get into his vault and destroy some evidence that he has, some DNA, in order to track one of the rogue's mentors, Raffles. And so if they can do this, they can free Raffles so he can make a new life for himself away from the Thieves Guild. So they've gotten into the estate, they're trying to figure out where this is, but first they had to deactivate this anti-magic field coming from this device. They got in, they activated it or deactivated it, but at the same time it was damaged, and so now they've all switched into different bodies. Their magic had infused this machine, and now their consciousness is in a different body. So at this point, everyone's ability checks, everyone's hit points, everyone's magic items, they are all now being controlled by a different player. Now, the Ranger is inside of the Druid's body, so nobody can say no to her because she has the evil book and all the curses that go along with it. So if anyone says no to her, she immediately has to try and kill them. The Rogue now has this sentient morning star that he's talking to, and now he's hearing it for the first time, Lauren Soth, who's reaching out to him and telling him like, hey, collect more souls for me. The Druid has lost his blessing from the Delian Order, and so now he doesn't have those powers because he's not worthy right now. He has to earn that from the Delian Order. So the tattoo that was on his wrist, all the powers that came with that, they're gone. And the Warlock is now, he's picking up his items, he's trying to figure out like where his weapons are, and he gets them out of their hiding spot, and he holds on to the bow, the magic bow, and as he touches it, he gets transported towards that ethereal black room, and he sees everyone else's that's in there. He sees the people with the dragon masks and the cloaks, and he sees the Beholder, and the Beholder sees him, and he can tell that it's a different person at this point because it doesn't matter what his body looks like, his soul is trapped inside this body, and so his soul goes to this ethereal place. So now everyone's all like, what is going on? And now this Beholder, he sees the Warlock and he knows that this is his new enemy. So when the Warlock comes to and everyone's all like, oh man, okay, what are we gonna do now? We gotta figure out what to do with these new bodies. They start trying to do a couple experiments. The Ranger casts some magic, just a very easy cantrip, and when she does, she rolls on the wild magic table and she turns into a potted plant. It turns out that nobody can really control the magic within their own bodies because it's an alien body. Everyone has a different way that they cast magic, a different thing that fuels their magic, and so because of that, people are rolling random things at this point. It's almost not even safe to use magic. So because of this turn of events, I'm very proud of my players because they start role-playing and talking to each other about what fuels their magic. They talk about, what the motivation was when they first got used to their powers and where their magic comes from and how they can fuel it with their emotions, and so everyone starts training the other person how to use their body. Now, before the heist began, Raffles had given them the same squid-like creature that they could put in their ears to try and communicate with them because he wasn't going to be anywhere near the estate. He needed to be kind of their eyes outside to see if anything was going on, if they needed help. So he starts talking to them and seeing what's going on, and they're all like, there's been a new turn of events. He asked them if they're going to abort, if they're going to get out of there, and they're all like, no, we still need to finish the mission. This is the only chance, or maybe the only chance, that we can get inside of this vault. And so if we can, we have to take this chance, even if it means that we gotta learn a new way to cast spells and how to use a new body. So at this point, the characters are all like, we need to continue the mission. So they go downstairs trying to figure out where this vault is. They find another security room, and they actually dispatch a lot of the security guards. Now that they have these new bodies, they're trying out some of the new abilities that they have. And when they're inside one of the security offices, they can see that there's a cage, and inside looks like a giant roach. It's this rust monster. And so they speak with animals to it to see if it knows anything about this area. And the rust monster is all like, no, I just want to eat armor. So one of the characters, I think it was the Ranger, she's now in the Druid's body, she says like, oh, let's just kill this thing. Like, let's be done with it. And everyone tells her like, no, why would you want to kill this thing? They said no to her. And so suddenly, her eyes flare with rage, she goes all red, and she suddenly wants to kill the person who said no. Which I think at this point, it was the Druid. And so the Druid's all like, huh, that's what that feels like. The Ranger goes after the Druid with this new rage, and suddenly she gets a couple hits in, but everyone else, they take her down and they subdue her before she does some real damage. And as they knock her out, she comes back to, and now the rage has lifted. And so they're all just kind of like, okay, we need to remember about this. This is the person who we can't say no around. Eventually, they find the vault, and they had to go through a couple different rooms, one of them being a pretty dangerous puzzle with a Medusa. But they eventually get to the vault, and they open it up. And as they're walking in, they can see a couple different things. It looks like this is like a storeroom. It has all the different paintings and artifacts and some living creatures in here as well. And then they see that there's a dwarf, and he's feeding what looks like a fish, a goldfish, inside of a large fish bowl. And so as the dwarf sees them and they see it, the dwarf runs over and he pulls onto an alarm, and suddenly a siren rings out all throughout this estate. The party members rush into the room and they grab the dwarf and they tell him, shut off the alarm, and he's all like, nope, because soon my boss will be here and you're gonna be sorry. And then he laughs this maniacal laugh. And now the rogue and the druid, they lose their temper and they just kill the dwarf right there. And then the vault that was right behind them, it explodes and this disintegration ray shoots through it. And in its place, they can see this floating abomination, this beholder that just floats through the hole and looks at them and starts snarling. And you can see that they're standing over the dead dwarf that they had just killed. Roll initiative. So this fight ensues inside of this beholder's vault room, and everyone is trying to throw their best at this beholder, but everything they throw at him, he's deflecting, or his AC's way too high and they can't hit him. And then they start using a lot of the area itself. They can see that there's this glass holding with this gelatinous cube, and they break it open trying to spill it on the beholder. And the beholder is shooting off these rays, these eye rays, all at the same time. One he uses to make the warlock afraid of him. Another one he uses to pick the rogue up and throw him against the ceiling. And then another one he shoots this petrifying ray, and it hits the who was it? It was the druid who's inside of the rogue's body, and his arm starts to petrify. It's starting to travel up all the way to his body. And so at this point, they realize they don't have a lot of time. They're trying to hit him for everything they got, but everything they do, he's throwing it back tenfold at them. And so then the ranger, she decides to look into the evil book, the same evil book that's given all these curses, and she uses one of them. She uses lightning bolt, and suddenly this giant portal erupts at the top ceiling of this vault room, and inside drops this storm giant, Galruth, the same storm giant that had said that he needed to kill the druid. He's looking down, and they're looking at him, and something's different about him because he's wearing a Kiss the Cook apron, and it looks like he was at a barbecue, which makes him even more furious because it was his day off. The beholder, not really knowing what's going on, sees this new threat and starts attacking him, and so at that point, the giant turns around, he has this giant spatula, and he just starts beating the beholder over the head. All the party members seeing these two titans fight it out realize that they can't be here, they're gonna get squashed. So the ranger, she uses her ability, a rope trick, and opens up this interdimensional little break room, and they all shimmy up there and they stay inside there to be safe, and they close the door behind them. So the party members are inside this break room and they're trying to catch their breath, and at the same time the petrification is rolling up this rogue's hand, and he's looking over, the druid who's inside the rogue's body is looking over at the rogue, and he's all like, what do I do, what do I do? And the rogue's all like, ugh. He takes out his short sword and he severs the arm. And so now at this point he has cut off his own arm to save the rest of his body from petrifying. The rest of the party members heal him the best that they can and bandage the wound, and they decide to wait it out because they realize that they can stay inside this room for about an hour. So they're gonna wait and see, maybe after an hour, what's gonna happen with the battle below. Time ticks away, and after 59 minutes, they open up the portal and they sulk down, and they can see the devastation inside this room and a couple holes that supposedly the storm giant had busted through at this point. And they look down and they can see Xanathar's husk, his dead body that is just down on the ground. And it looks like the storm giant won. The party members, not forgetting their mission, go over to the filing cabinet and they grab all the different files that they can, everything that they can find about Raffles and other people, and they decide they're just going to destroy it all. They're not even going to look at it. And then they go over, and the warlock, he grabs onto this shield, this celestial weapon that matches the counterpart to this bow. And so he grabs onto it, trying not to hold on to it because he doesn't want to wield it and then go into this ethereal plane. They need to be conscious for this part. So they start to escape. They try and go towards the best way that they can to try and get out of this place. And as they're running for an exit, they can hear sirens going off and smoke everywhere and people running in all directions, and they can hear just like the crunching sound of this storm giant battering down everything inside of this estate. They go down a hallway and they see an escape hatch that goes into the sewer, and as they're heading over there, they can see that the storm giant is behind them. He's crushed through a door and he's running towards them. And then the ranger, who's now inside of the druid's body, she decides to try and parlay with the storm giant. So she approaches him and she starts to ask him if he could leave the rest of their party members alone. She was the one who called him. And all the other party members are like, "What are you doing? You're gonna die." And she goes up to the storm giant. The storm giant looks down at her and he's all like, "Are you going to listen to the Amber Temple?" And she's all like, not really understanding what that means. She says, "Yes, I'm going to." And he says, "Grab onto my hand." And she thinks that it's going to be one of those things where like you shake on it. She grabs onto his hand, he grips onto her, he opens up a portal, and they take off. And now the ranger is inside the druid's body and she is gone. And so the rest of the party members are staring up at this, wondering how are they going to get back into their own bodies now? And that's where we ended session. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed this, and if you do want to figure out like a game that's going on or maybe some resources to get your own game started, reach out. I'd be glad to help you out with that. Tune in next time and we're going to figure out what's going to go on with these party members, because now they have to figure out what dimension is the storm giant, how are they going to find their friend, how are they going to get there. And so hopefully they can. Everyone be safe out there. Bye now.